Please join me in welcoming a distinguished legal mind, public servants, and powerful voice in governance. Babatunde Raji Fashola is a senior advocate of Nigeria and the former Minister of Power, Works and Housing from 2019 till 2023. Please put your hands together for Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN-CON.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Let me start by thanking our convener for this important annual meeting on a very iconic day in our national history, June 12th. Of course, for me as a parent and for other parents across the nation, today comes with very mixed blessings for very obvious reasons. But the business of nationhood must continue so that we do not surrender to those who wish otherwise. But our hearts go out to those in grief and those in captivity, and our biggest encouragement for our government and law enforcement to bring them back safely. So, I have been asked to speak about democracy beyond elections. And this just takes me back again to 1993 and why we convened on June 12th. This should have been an ordinary day, just another ordinary day. We had gone to vote. And we had expected while we were monitoring the results that the votes would be counted. Then the abnormal happened. The votes were stopped. The elections were subsequently annulled. And June 12 became not just a date anymore. It became an event, a cause and a movement, an agitation that took local, international, and global center stage. That date has become more than a number. It has become the expression of the wish of a people and their resolve. The events that followed, of course, have led to the elections that were held in 1999 and birthed this, our democracy. I asked people born in 1999 if they remembered what happened. Some of them don't even know who MKO Abiola was. So I have shared books written about MKO Abiola's life with them, and then we have been able to have conversations. So, what happened that period, from that day, was the overwhelming, unwritten agreement of majority of Nigerians in and out of government that ultimately led to the 1999 elections and the start of the democratic experience we celebrate and commemorate today. Let that not be lost on anybody at all. It took a lot. So if we are to discuss democracy beyond elections, the question I ask is, what kind of democracy have we made an agreement about, if we have made an agreement at all? What kind of democracy do we want? And for those to whom that might sound strange, there is the classic liberal democracy that comes with all of the liberties and all of the freedoms. But a new school of thought has also emerged and is being discussed by scholars about an illiberal type of democracy. And there are reasons why this dichotomy has evolved, not the least of which is the undisputed fact that democracy is not an easy form of government at all. As you might have heard before I came on stage, it comes with freedoms, the right to ask, the right to choose, the right to even express outrage to your leaders. And that means that that system of government comes with checks and balances. It commends the necessity for consensus building. And please don't forget that word, consensus building. And this is what I intend to focus on as we discuss democracy beyond elections. So, in the interest of time, I am just going to be asking us questions, perhaps to provoke thoughts about how we can build consensus as a people and as a nation. Let us look at elections. What consensus have we evolved about our elections? Are we agreed as a people that elections are an imperfect event all over the world? They are never perfect, because it is a large and challenging logistic undertaking. So perfection is aspirational. And so when there are glitches or problems with elections, either somebody doesn't do his job on that day, because the reality on election day in Nigeria is that presidential election, to be precise, it was 176,000 polling stations across the world. On that day, from about 9 till about 2 or 3, everybody was supposed to be doing the same thing together, correctly, at the same time. They were born differently, they were socialized differently, they were transported differently, they were educated differently. Some have eaten, some did not eat. That is the reality of that day. And so with the imperfections, are we agreed that we should accept the results? Or are we agreed that it must be INEC's fault? Even when the INEC chairman cannot be in all of those 176,000 polling stations. Think about it. In other jurisdictions, they recognize the imperfections, they aspire to improve, but they accept the results. And for those who are unsuccessful, they move peacefully and gallantly to accept the position of opposition. That role, I dare say, is as important, if not more important, than the role of those in government. It seems to me that an unwillingness to accept the outcome of an election perhaps blinds the unsuccessful participant from seeking and taking up the ennobling role of opposition for the development of society. I have spoken about the necessity for consensus because I think it is the most important feature that will help shape our democracy. Consensus does not disable opposition. On the contrary, it sharpens the alternatives that they represent. And let me repeat that, consensus doesn't disable opposition. It just sharpens the alternative that they represent. If we have a consensus about what we are going to do as a people and as a nation on various issues, some of which I will deal with by example, it is then easy to hold people's feet to fire about the alternatives that they present as to the best way to achieve it. And you will see from some of the examples. We have just had a major fiscal reform that delivered 4 new tax laws. And unless I missed it, I don't recall what the political parties, and this is not about what their individual members have said about the tax reform, I don't recall what the party's positions were about the subject of taxation. Now, can you truly have a representative government, a democratic government, without a debate about taxation. That is the basis of representation. And that is something about which I think we should reach a consensus. And the first question is, what do we want to do about taxes? Are we unanimous that every taxable person must pay? Because if we have that resolution as a consensus, the debate then will be whether the rich should pay more than the poor or whether they should pay the same. The debate will sharpen to whether corporates should pay more or less as a strategy for increasing industrialization or manufacturing or growth and creating employment. The other question to ask us about a consensus is, what should our foreign policy be? And can we form a consensus about who our enduring allies are? Who are our enduring allies? People we can go to sleep at night and know that they will have our backs. Who are they? This is something I want us to reflect upon. Because based on the investment we have made in liberation struggles across the continent, based on the investments we have made in peacekeeping missions across the continent, I am not sure that we can say confidently as a people here that we have this person or this country as an enduring ally. Can we have a consensus about the kind of parliamentary oversight that we want in our democracy? Because there should be parliamentary oversight of the executive arm. That's why it's a system of checks and balances. Should a party that has formed the majority in parliament, should that parliament oppose its own government simply because it does not want to be called a rubber stamp? And this is a serious matter, because we see in other jurisdictions, in spite of unpopular nominations, unpopular processes, the majority stands by its government. That is not to say that the majority cannot bring its own government to account when it is breaching the constitution or breaking the law. But it requires some deeper reflection. Why do people fight to deliver a majority in an election? As I've said before, it is a government by consensus. And that consensus usually requires you to have majority in parliament so that you can push your budget through on time for developmental work, you can pass your laws quickly for developmental work, and so on and so forth. But that does not necessarily mean that the majority must abdicate its responsibility to the electorate. But as I ask, what will it be worth working hard to have a majority if that majority becomes the opposition to its own government and slows down development? Now, what consensus can we build about healthcare and education funding as a people? Do we agree that free health and free education are qualitative enough and are sustainable? Or do we think that the quality is impacted by the price and they should be paid for? If we take the latter view, do we have a consensus that nobody must be left behind, irrespective of his status and his means? If we do, then the debate and differences at election in a government should be about who offers the best financing option, rather than who promises what is free and is unsustainable. If you want to applaud, please do so. Indeed, I ask, if we agree on free basic education, very basic education, do we also agree that university education can be delivered free and qualitatively? Think about it. There are a host of other things around which consensus will help to move our democracy beyond elections, which is the subject. What type of trade unions should we support to protect workers? And when should the instrumentality of a strike be deployed, if at all? What kind of civil society organization do we need to do the job of making public officers accountable? And what process should we adopt for making civil society organizations themselves accountable? Because we cannot have a society in which some people are unaccountable. Now, to the big one in the transition era, what kind of political parties do we desire? And what role should their executives play? And how do we hold them accountable, political parties? And can they even hold their own candidates who hold office accountable? When did we last see a national chairman or a state chairman of a party invite the president or the governor to the party headquarters to come and explain what he is doing with their mandate, with the people? Is that the kind of political parties we want to see? Let's think about it. Now I want to go to the last point, and it is whether we have formed a consensus as a people about whether we are a nation or a country. Are we a nation or are we a country? Now, I take this point because the day I raised the point, some of my colleagues said, "What are you talking about?" Because we use those words somewhat interchangeably, but they mean different things. And when I said, okay, undertake a search on a digital search engine and see what it brings up, then we had a debate. Some of them famously quoted Chief Obafemi Awolowo as saying, "Oh, we are a mere geographical expression, we are not a nation." And I said, well, that classification perhaps even does some injustice to the late sage. But I'm researching, I'm looking for the full speech of where he was quoted. And when I find it, I'll probably come back publicly. But it is a matter I think we should reflect on. And I consider it worthy of this podium because I recently read a book by a former Nigerian leader. And in about 14 instances in his book, he referred to us interchangeably in one breath as a country, in another breath as a nation. And I thought that that was profoundly perplexing. Because if we don't have an agreement about our own identity, how can we reach an agreement about our purpose? Are we a nation or a country? It is possible that those who created us by way of colonization and independence created us in their own image. No, it's serious, just think of it. Because if you look at them, they are a country of several nations. And I think perhaps that is what we are. In less formal surroundings, I say that if you look at how they go to the World Cup as different nations, then they go to the Olympics as one country, and they play politics in a different way, under different names, you probably see what I am talking about. I think we are a country of many diverse nations, and that is a good thing, a very good thing, from which shared prosperity and development can be forged. We are also a resilient, innovative, and adaptable people. But can we forge a national creed from these traits? Not for the purpose of enduring rubbish. We can't be resilient to rubbish. but rather for the purpose of propelling ourselves to overcome every adversity that lies on our path to greatness. Ladies and gentlemen, on the anniversary of the historic and iconic June 12 date, these are my thoughts about democracy beyond elections. Thank you.